What's going on, Steelers Nation? How we doing? The Steelers just made another signing. They just signed safety DeShone Elliott, who played last season in Miami, bounced around a little bit, but started his career in Baltimore. So, they're going back to their roots, guys that are familiar with the AFC North. Interesting signing all overall. We talked about it in the free agent videos on the channel, but, there were a lot of quality options, a lot of, really high caliber depth at this position. Just a lot of guys available, different skill sets, all that stuff. Elliott was a name that, wasn't near, I think, the top of everybody's list if you were probably prioritizing more of them making like a splash signing or something like that. But a very solid player. He's been a really good player really the entirety of his career. He's been in the league since 2019. Former sixth round pick, Thorpe Award winner in college from Texas. Kind of the skinny or what I know about him, just from really mostly his days in Baltimore. He's a guy that has good size, really long. I think he's got like 77th percentile wingspan. He started his career really as a free safety, but over the past couple years, he's played a little bit more around in the box. This is a guy who really is pretty interchangeable. He can do both. He can play deep. He can play split field. He played in that Fangio system where they were playing top down last year in Miami. Had a good season doing that. You just look at some of the numbers that kind of stand out. Just really over the course of his career, he's been an extremely good tackler. So you look at really the 3 seasons that he's played, and remained healthy for the full seasons. 11.7 missed tackle rate in 2020 and 2022 that went all the way down in half, so 6.2. And then he was at a little over 8% last year with the Dolphins. So this is a guy who's really reliable, does really well in terms of playing the run from depth, but can also, like, he has the body type and the frame to hold up in the box as well. So if you were wanting the Steelers to sign somebody that could potentially free up Fitzpatrick to play him more deep, especially on like early down, things like that, DeShone Elliott makes a lot of sense because I think that he has the capability. He was drafted into that Wink Martindale system with the Ravens. They played a lot of man coverage. You just look at the man coverage rates. And then really over the past couple seasons, the Steelers have transitioned to, being more man heavy as well. So this is a fit that really makes sense. From what I remember about Elliott's game, he, held up decent in man coverage as well. So I'm excited to see what the tape says, particularly about like how his game has evolved really since the last time that I've, really seen him up close. But, good hitter, good tackler. Like I said, adding size. I think, Elliott's not a spectacular athlete. He's more of just like an average athlete who gets by on instincts and really physicality. But, still, I think that he's probably an upgrade in that regard compared to like Keanu Neal, who is probably, the guy he's replacing. As of right now, DeMonte KZ remains on the roster. I don't really know if that's going to continue or not. I would assume it will. But, those three guys, I think it does give you, Elliott gives you a 3-down starter, and that's kind of what I, at least at the bare minimum, that's what I wanted them to do in free agency. I wanted them to go out and sign a guy so that they didn't have to kind of mix and match as much as they did last year. I think having 3 quality safeties is a really good thing. It's a bonus for your defense, but at the same time, they were just so specific last year. Like KZ is a lot better playing from depth, free safety, and then Keanu Neal pretty much doesn't really have that interchangeable ability. He wasn't a guy who had the range or the athleticism to play deep. So, he was really just a box safety. But when you replace him with a guy like Elliott, who could do a little bit of both, allows you to disguise a lot of the looks you're doing on the back end, allows you to potentially free Minka up to go back to doing what he does best, which is roam the center field. So that's something that I'm excited about. The contract numbers right now that we have reported is 2 years, $6 million. I mean, that's bargain bin shopping right there. But I think, over the course of his career, Elliott's been a baseline or even above average starter. And I think that value definitely matches. I want to say Pro Football Focus had him at a 1-year deal for $4 million. So, I mean, that all checks out. Couple things just to note just about Elliott. Not really the type of playmaker that I think a lot of people associate the guys that, the Steelers typically have targeted in recent seasons in terms of taking the ball away. His turnover numbers are probably similar to like what we were used to seeing out of like Terrell Edmonds. He only has 3 career interceptions. He's a guy who, is around the ball. He had 6, 7 pass breakups last season, but he's never finished a season with more than a single interception. So that's just one of the things. He's not really a heavy playmaker, more of just a consistent contributor. And then the other thing is just the injuries. I think that was probably a big reason why, he was available for so cheap, and the reason why he's bounced around a little bit. He spent his first 3 years with the Ravens. His rookie year, I believe he broke his forearm, started out the season on injured reserve, and then he had a really good 2020, and that's really what I remember him from. And I thought that the Ravens had like this really ascending young talent at safety. And then the following season, I think midway through the season, he tore his pec and his bicep and had to miss the rest of the season on injury reserve. Since then, he signed, I believe, a 1 year deal with Detroit. He played relatively fine there. I know Detroit this past year played a lot of man coverage. I'm not sure what their rates were in 2022, and then signed a 1 year deal for Miami, kind of on the low again this past season to team up with Javon Holland in that Fangio defense. So if you just look at some of the injuries that he's had, even when he was at Texas, he was banged up a little bit. He missed some time his freshman year. And then, just going through like the list of injuries that I'm seeing online, like there's some concussion stuff, some shoulder stuff. If you're talking about putting a guy like that in the box, how's his body going to hold up if he has to take on a lot, if he has to make a lot more tackles, or, if he's having to consistently take on blocks and be, kind of in a lot of those combat windows? We'll see, but I'm optimistic. I think that this is a really good value signing. I think that, when the Steelers went out and made the move to make a little bit of a splash, signing Patrick Queen, that was kind of the big fish that I think that we were kind of hoping for in free agency, them making a big move. Now it's about probably filling out that defense that has a lot of expensive pieces, not just Queen, but, Fitzpatrick, Watt, Highsmith, all those guys, Hayward, filling that out with, complementary players for the low. And I think that that's what Elliott probably brings you. But I'm optimistic. I'm really excited to get to the tape. I would expect that the Steelers are probably going to turn their attention over the next, day or so to finding a wide receiver. They did trade for Dante Jackson. Still no word on if he's reworking his deal or what all that is going to shake out towards. There were some rumors about that. But, I think, they've acquired a baseline player, I think, on the outside in Jackson. I'm going to start on his film room stuff today. But, they probably need to start addressing some of the stuff on the offensive side of the ball. They probably need to find someone that they're at least comfortable with starting the season at center, so you aren't relying on yourself or pigeonholing yourself into drafting a rookie early on and then having to start him right away. And they also probably need a receiver because, they dealt Deontay Johnson. The depth behind him isn't all that overwhelming. Calvin Austin's a nice complementary or auxiliary piece, but definitely not someone that you've probably seen enough as of this point to thrust into a starting role. So I would anticipate they're going to sign a receiver here soon, probably someone who has inside outside versatility, can play in the slot. But I'm interested to see who they go after. There's still some particularly interesting names. Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati has came up a lot in terms of maybe him making a homecoming to the Berg. Another name that I highlighted in my free agency preview was Josh Reynolds. Now that Deontay Johnson's out of the fold, I could see them maybe spending a little bit more, which I think Reynolds is going to be, somewhat expensive, or not expensive, but he was going to be more than, a guy like Matt Collins or somebody from the vet men. But Reynolds makes a lot of sense with the Arthur Smith offense. I would be intrigued by, having him as a stopgap type of number two receiver that, if you go and draft your like guy of choice in this draft class, which is loaded with receiver options, he can then slide back to the number three spot. He could play inside, outside, but we'll see. I think Reynolds, Boyd, two guys to keep an eye on. I would anticipate that the Steelers are definitely not done making any moves. Slot corner could also be a position that they look at. There's still some options available there. Maybe a guy like Chandon Sullivan comes back. I'm not really sure. But there's still work to be done. But I like the signing on the low. I'm excited to get to his film and just see, kind of what his game's all about. Appreciate y'all watching. Appreciate all the love and support on all the film room stuff. If you're looking for something to do until any more news breaks or anything like that, go check out the Russell Wilson film room, the Patrick Queen film room. All that's up on the channel. Drop me a comment on this video. Give it a like. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. And I will holler at y'all later.